A central feature of mindfulness is bringing our attention to a specific anchor. And that could be sounds, it could be sensations in the body, but more often perhaps we tend to focus on bringing our attention to our breath. And when we do that, even though we're not necessarily trying to impact on our breath, the tendency is for us to slow down, for the breath to slow, perhaps deepen a little. But you don't have to practice mindfulness to be able to practice controlling your breath, managing your breath. And there are some really, really powerful advantages to doing so, powerful consequences to doing so. And it's slowing your breath down, extending your breath can help to reduce stress, anxiety, pain, even chronic pain. It can improve decision making, allow you to focus more, actually be more relaxed. How does that happen? It's really tied into our response to stress. When we get stressed, our breathing tends to quicken and it becomes more shallow. We don't do it consciously, but it happens. It shortens. It puts us into what we might call the fight or flight or freeze response. Controlled by, our brain is interlinked and I'm simplifying, but controlled by areas of our brain called the amygdala. That's really a kind of a gunslinger. It's looking for danger. It shoots from the hip, fires off. If there's a sense of danger in the air, boom! It fires up and fires neurochemicals into our bloodstream that prepare us either to put up a fight or to run or simply to freeze and hope the danger goes away. And our breathing quickens. That noradrenaline flows through our body. And when that happens, our capacity to think, to actually make rational decisions, is cut off because we haven't got time to do that. This is a life or death situation. When in actual fact, most of the things that stress us out, they're not life or death. They're not things that we maybe have to respond to immediately, there and then. But our brain tells us otherwise. And it tells our body otherwise. And it responds in ways that can leave us open to suffering in the short term. But if we suffer from chronic stress and keep that going on for a long while, that can give us long-term consequences and negative consequences. But if we breathe more slowly, actually we begin to activate a different aspect of our nervous system. Instead of it being the sympathetic nervous system, that fight and flight response, we activate the parasympathetic nervous system, a rest and digest response as it's sometimes referred to. It slows us down. It takes that gunslinger and almost soothes him or her, slows them down. It's okay, put your guns away, no need to panic right here and right now. Slows us down, gives us space, allows us to re-engage parts of the brain that get cut off when we're in that fight and flight or freeze response. Allows us to re-engage the prefrontal cortex, that area of the brain that allows us to rationalise, to balance up the pros and cons, to look at long-term consequences, to take a broader perspective and to see situations perhaps more realistically. Is this life or death? No, it's not. We can think about things, we can make decisions. You can try it for yourself now. Just taking a few, just longer, slower and deeper breaths. So just breathing in. And out. And in. And out. And just being aware of what's happening in your body, in your mind, as you breathe. Now just this longer, slower, deeper breathing can be really powerful. But it can also help if we do it in specific patterns, a variety of patterns. One that's kind of widely recognised is the 4-6 pattern. So it's breathing in for the count of 4 and then breathing out for for the count of 6. It's extending that breath, that out breath. So breathing in for 4, and then out for 6. In for 4, and out for 6. If you do that a few times, just notice what you notice. And your experience is your experience. I won't tell you how it will impact on you. But for the vast majority of people, there is that sense of clarity that emerges, a sense of calm, and a greater sense of relaxation, putting things in perspective, putting us in a position where we can make more reasonable decisions about what it is we want to do and what we don't want to do, how we're going to go about things, how big is this problem. Now, it's all well and good sat here, hopefully in a situation that's peaceful and calm for you and practicing your breathing. But how do you make this an automatic response in situations that you find stressful? Because that gunfighter, that's trained, that's highly honed, that's an automatic response. You sense danger, it senses danger before you're even consciously aware of it, and it responds. So to override that in any way, we need to practice. We need to practice this slow breathing so that when the time comes, that becomes more of the automatic response. So you could set yourself a challenge. Thinking, okay, when can I practice this? Maybe when I move from one activity to the next, I can just try to remember, okay, now let's just practice a few breaths. In for 4, out for 6. If you're involved in meetings, perhaps you could do it just at the start of the meeting. You could do it while the meeting's going on. You don't have to tell anybody you're doing it. You just do it. Or maybe it's just before you're doing some things with your kids and they're hyper excitable and it's all too much. In for 4, out for 6. Notice what difference it makes to you. And perhaps you can share it. Teach your children. Teach your family, teach your friends. In for 4, out for 6. It's like giving yourself a mini tranquilizer, a mini brain reset, just allowing you to break from that difficult situation that's becoming overwhelming, the stress is rising. Step back. Just remember, in for 4, out for 6.